Now we gotta change bits. Success. Classic. Dude, I've left my keys out here for like the past 5 days. They've just been sitting right here. I've been looking all over for them. They just happen to be right there. That's awesome. Jeez, Mikey, you ever gonna take the trash out? Well, it all started with, let's see. Started with these guitar picks. This one was to be a necklace, guitar pick necklace. It started with this. So what happened was I started making a guitar back home, hence the name DiCiaccio Guitar Company. That was the dream. Let's see, once I started doing that, me and my buddy were street performing for, in Providence, Rhode Island. We'd play out on the street. And I remember we got legalized to play in the street because we'd been like illegally doing it. We got kicked off one day. So we had to meet before this committee in Town Hall, Providence. You know, we like dressed okay and walked in there, and we get in there with our guitars, and I had in my pocket, I had 2 guitar picks I had made from the guitar. I was making 2 scraps of wood, and I was getting ready to give it to Christian after I think we had to perform for the committee, and we get in there, and this lady that we'd been emailing goes, "Hey, I'm so sorry, I meant to call you guys yesterday. Providence just changed their law. Anybody can play out on the street." And we had like gone through all this hassle. Christian took the day off work to come down, and he was pissed. And then I was like, "Well, hey, check these out." And I gave him these wooden guitar picks. And then I got back here to Chicago, and I missed working with wood. So I bought a bunch of wood online, and I started making wooden guitar picks. As you can tell, I got a lot. I got woods from like 5 different continents. The only ones I'm missing are Antarctica and Asia. But I've got a lot. We got some crazy stuff like this. This is Cocobolo from Central and South America. And then we've got what we're working with today. We're working with American cherry, which is simple wood that you can find in your backyard. So I've got all sorts of things, woods from different countries all over. Simple woods, more rare woods. And it's cool when you make the rings. What you do is, if you do a triple layer, you can do some really awesome things, like, let's see a good one. Like this one. It's kind of like they like to call it like an international marriage. We got maple in the middle from North America. On the outside we have Caribbean Chechen, which is a rosewood that's found in the Caribbean. It's really pretty. And when you bring those 2 different kinds of woods together, I think it makes some awesome mixtures. This one is juniper wood that you can find in the juniper tree anywhere. And ash, you can find that in your backyard too. And a lot of these domestic woods are really inexpensive. This is one of the first rings I ever made. You could tell the finish is getting worn off on it. It's oak and walnut, and I mean, I think it's one of my favorite wood combinations. It's just so. I think it's just such a great combo. But I mean, like I have so much wood I can make like over like 300 combinations now, and we also have this stuff called abalone, which we put in our rings. It's kind of like it's from a abalone shell from the ocean, and I'll get these dots, and I'll drill a little hole in the ring and stick it in there, and it'll stay. It's like our little diamond from the ocean. Yeah, here's another one of my favorites, Ibiara and maple. This is really nice. It's a nice shine on this one. So yeah, I once I started with the guitar picks, I was like, what else can I make? And Drew was like, oh, you should try making rings. And I was like, I can't do that. And so I was like, you know what, I'll try. And I remember like usually like when you try to like figure something out on your own, it usually never works, and you have to like find some answers like online or ask somebody. But like my method is I get these certain sized bits. This is called a spade bit, and they all have different sizes. This one's 13/16. And now I know like what size bit is what size ring, and like as you saw before, sometimes I'll have to hollow it out a little bit to get the perfect size. But I tried that. Like that was my first try of like maybe that will work, and it worked. And I was like, oh my gosh, can't believe it. Nothing ever works on the first try. Everything's always more difficult than it needs to be. But it worked, and then I started selling them online. And I remember at first I was selling them for like $30, which I thought was a fair price for like the amount of work I put into it. But then nobody was buying them at that price, so then I dropped them like $10, and then that's when people started buying and started taking off and stuff. I mean, yeah, it's been my big money maker in comparison to guitar picks, because guitar picks will sell for less than $5, like $3 to $5, depending on what wood you get. Like, so, I don't know, like, that's how it happened, really. That's the whole history of it. That's the whole history of the company, actually. Now I think we've made, I think we're up to like I'm up to like $3,500. We've shipped to like 10 or 11 different countries, which is really cool. I just had an order to Sweden and one to Germany last week. I've had a lot to Germany. I have a lot to New Zealand and Australia. The Aussies love it, I guess. They love it down under. Yeah, so now the ring's really starting to take form. I've heard the wolves are howling, the winds are howling too. I've heard the blowing waves of grain and marching soldiers' boots. And a cry out from our forest, and a cry from the poor, and an outcry from the men and women who all want something more. Oh, I've heard the mighty winds of revolution. complaining about a welfare check while a family struggles for food. Oh, I've heard the mighty winds of revolution. I've heard the whispers in the alleyways and whispers in the winds. I've heard the winds are changing and a new season begin. And glowing pages blowing and white shack shutters crack. And the ripping of the Constitution that the people must take back. I've heard broken, fickle families and burning forests in the west. And the breeze of failure coming from the ones who tried their best. And my own pounding heartbeat, and fading heartbeats too. And fading shades of reds and greens and oranges, yellows and blues. Oh, I've heard the mighty winds of revolution. Now I've heard the refugees knocking in the opening of the doors. I've heard the ravens at my windows and the speech to end all wars. And I finally heard forgiveness, and I finally heard peace, and the waters that will wash our souls as the winds begin to cease. Oh, I've heard the mighty winds of revolution. So now we're just getting the, about to put the finish on there, so look at, she's all done. She's almost a perfect circle. Good enough in my eyes. You can see it from the sides. It's a nice looking ring. So now, this little trick my uncle taught me is that paper itself has its own grit. Newspaper's the best, but these post-it notes do a really good job too, where it'll make the ring, it'll polish it basically. It'll polish the wood, bring it up to, so that once I throw the finish on there, it'll have a really nice shine. Which is solidifying. That's good. There we go. Looking good now. Let's see, what we'll do is let's dunk it. I'm probably supposed to be wearing gloves, but I've been doing this for like a year and a half now without wearing gloves, so if I'm gonna get like sick from it, then it should have already happened. On my Christmas tree ornament that I use as hooks. This is the makeshift, man. So efficient.